tuning in to RM Podcast FL. Just like I said in the intro, yes, this is your favorite podcaster. And it's Tuesday. We have another awesome episode for you guys. Today, we actually have Ryan Bennett. Hi, Ryan. How are you today?
Hey, Romina. I'm doing well today.
Awesome. Well, again, my energy is super high right now. I already warned Ryan, you guys. So just try to stick with me here, okay? We're going to blame it on the awesome cold brew that I started drinking recently. Well, Ryan, I want to definitely pass on the mic to you. I don't know anybody else that knows you better than you know yourself. So tell us about young you to today. Tell us how awesome you are. Introduce yourself to our beautiful audience.
Well, I'll introduce myself. I'll let your audience figure out what they think about me. That's not on me. But first and foremost, I am a father and a husband out of Kansas City, Missouri. So that's my home. That's where I live. And so what I do professionally, though, is I am a high-performance coach, author, and a speaker who guides people to be more intentional with their lives. And how I kind of got here into this journey of where I'm at today has been a windy road, weird, but it's really fun. So after a successful college baseball playing career, I wanted to put my competitiveness into something else. I just didn't know what it was, but I had a business degree and I had a business idea. So I was like, you know what? I will do a startup. And I knew that to be the best, you got to be around the best. So I moved out to Silicon Valley, recruited a team, and built the product over 2.5 years. Unfortunately, after those 2.5 years, we became a statistic. And I had to shut down the business, let go of the team, and drive home to Kansas City. And just feeling like a loser and lost, and kind of reflected on that experience. And I had kind of a big aha. I realized that the same mindset and disciplines that I put into the baseball world, I needed to also take those same disciplines and put them into the professional world. And unfortunately, a failed business is what caused me to realize that. And so at that point, I was 27, living in my parents' basement, flat broke. My friends are kind of going places, and I'm now taking the initiative. I finally got myself woken up where I'm like, okay, I want to start studying about this. And I started to come up with a path and a model for personal and professional growth. And so right around that same time that I started to kind of evolve this process, I was then approached to join another startup as a founding team member of it. And I was excited. Not only do I get back in the game of the startup world, because it's like a really competitive high,
but I also have a competitive spirit. You're like, let's go, let's do this, let's get.
That's right. That's right. I only can sit in the sidelines so long. I got to get back in the game. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I got a chance to get back at it, and I get a chance to apply this formula. And over those 7 years I was at the company, we took just an idea and ended up building a product that has millions of dollars of revenue and Fortune 500 clients using the product every single day. And so what I learned from all that was that for me personally, the best way for me to grow both personally and professionally was really through this intentional method that I created. And so right around that time, I decided to leave the startup in good hands, where I'm the biggest cheerleader there is on the sidelines, and write a book and build a business as a coach around it.
Nice. Now, I want to focus a little bit, because you did say you had this awesome idea, and then you wanted to be around, specific people like Silicon Valley. That's where most of the, like the craziest ideas at first, but like the most successful ones sometimes come out of. Let's just be honest with that. I know you also mentioned you talk about like you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. Let's break it down a little bit, because I think it's very important to be surrounded with the right energy or the right people. Maybe not around me when I'm high on coffee, guys, just saying, because you'll end up just like, like breaking down after an hour. But let's talk about how does being around the right people helps you mentally towards your career, your profession, like your career, your personal life, just kind of change perspectives. Let's kind of talk about it for a minute, because and share your experience. How did that help you moving to Silicon Valley and being surrounded with people that think outside of the box?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me answer you directly, and then I'll give an example.
Okay.
So the 5 people that you spend the most time with will have the direct effect on your future. Okay, that doesn't mean that the 5 millionaires you hang out with or the 5 best people you hang out with. It is the people you hang out with most. So you have to be really intentional about that. The science will tell us. So Dr. David McClellan out of Harvard did a study, and he found that that 95% of your success is associated with the people you hung around with, the 5 people you hung around with. And so it really, really matters. And so, for example, I went up to Silicon Valley. So at that time in Kansas City, it wasn't the startup scene it is now. So there's not very many people doing startups. The investors didn't understand the world I was in, recruiting a team. And I think there's a huge learning curve that just wasn't there. And so I knew that to be the best, you got to be around the best. I understood this 5 people principle. And so I packed up a U-Haul without knowing anybody and moved over out to Silicon Valley. And out there, it's a whole different environment, right? Like, so I'm walking down the main street, University Ave in Palo Alto, and you got coffee shops, you got the first offices of Google and Logitech, and you have, obviously Facebook down the road now. And you're just passing and you're in coffee shops and surrounded by people who have the same time of dream you do to try to build something that could change the world. And you're surrounded by investors who want to invest in people like that. And then you're around mentors, which is really important. You're around the mentors who have done it. And these people want to give back and help the next generation. And so the whole ecosystem is built around this 5 people principle.
Nice. And I was smiling when you said just packed up the U-Haul and moved like somewhere that you don't know about it, because you reminded me of myself when I moved to America. I had 3 luggages when I moved here and a teddy bear that I was hugging. Like, I was 17. I also had no idea. I thought I knew English, but apparently when I moved here, I did not know English. I had to learn English. But it's that experience too. So it takes a lot of courage to also make that step, though. Did you have like a mentor or somebody to push you, or were you always like, I have to do this because this is going to be the right circle for me to expose myself? Because I know it's not easy sometimes to make that decision. What was your process, or where did you find that ultimate courage to make that step?
That's a really good question. Where did I find the courage? I think a little bit the background of sports for me, because we travel so much and I'm always around different people and new people. These experiences, I thrive in them, not like I don't get nervous about them. But I think for me, it's always because the purpose and the reason was greater than the fear of failure or the fear of the unknown for me. I don't see failure. I probably see failure the same way you do, right? It's not like you lost. It's just something you're not going to do again.
It's a big lesson.
Yeah, it was like there's nothing to lose by moving to Silicon Valley. Yeah, I could lose all my money and I fail business, and that's exactly what happened. But yet, like, you look at that now, 10 years, it was been 10 years now, 8 years, and it's like, holy cow, look how formative that experience was for me, that if I didn't, quote, blow up my life and move it all to Silicon Valley and start over and try to go for this thing, like, I wouldn't be the person I am today talking to everybody here on your show.
That is so true, though. I was having this conversation with a good friend of mine recently, because we're talking about, I'm talking to her about my recent project, like an online course that when I went to lunch. And she's like, well, Romina, why don't you start like a full-time job and then do this aside? And I was like, no, because if I don't do this, I can always get that job. Like, you have that resume. I can always get that job. If I don't do this now, it will be on the back of my hat. And it's like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, I will lose my investment and then I'll go ahead and find a job, let's say 5 months or a year later. It's like, it's okay. Like, it will be fine. But to me and you, this type of thinking process is normal because we just dare. But to other people, it's the scariest thing ever. So what advice would you give somebody that has that idea, but has like maybe family or relationship or like something like friendship is holding them back from taking not a big step, but even a mini step? Like, what did you tell to those people to just make a small jump?
I just tell them go for it. But there's reasons why, so here's the tactical step. So my answer is go for it, take the leap. You will not regret it. The worst case scenario is not that big of a deal, right? You'll stumble forward, you're not fall back. But the tactical pieces is if you're in that moment and you don't know what to do and you're kind of having some negativity around you and you're nervous about it and anxiety and a little bit of fear, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest 3 things. One is pick up some books of people who went for it and learn from them. Henry Ford started Ford Motor Company on his third failed venture. Sam Walton started Walmart on his third failed venture, right? Like Google was like the fifth search engine in the market, right? They weren't the first. So go learn from people who've been in the trenches with it. You can read books on it and biographies. It's wonderful. 2, go find mentors or reach out to people on Instagram, reach out to people on Facebook who've done it.
Or LinkedIn. People are not using LinkedIn. It drives me bananas when people don't use LinkedIn.
Yes. Especially if you're in your 20s or even young 30s, people want to help the next generation. Like, just ask. They'll be happy to help you. And then the third thing, and it goes back to our first topic, was the people you associate with. So I'm not saying, change your family. I'm not changing your friends. I'm not that. I'm saying go seek out peers and people who kind of are on the edge or doing something different, or who have a side hustle, who are thinking differently with you, and then be around them. Have coffee, have lunch, have dinner, have drinks, whatever it is, and start to pick their brain. And you realize that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Your thinking's not your thinking's not unique. Your anxiety and fear is not unique, but people have a bigger purpose, can overcome that fear.
So you're going to the roots of changing habits and changing little things one step at a time. That's what it boils down to.
Yes, of course.
So The Power of Habit is one of my most favorite books ever. It's amazing. If you guys haven't read it, definitely should read it. But tell me a little bit about you. Was there a habit that maybe as a teenager, like you thought it was like the greatest thing ever, because like teenage mind, and then as growing up, you're like, okay, well, this seems a little off because I've seen other people, like I've seen different, mentalities in Silicon Valley or whatever the case might be. So is there what habits did you start changing to be to have the mental process that you have now?
It's a great question. I'm a big fan of habits. Actually, in my book, one of the sections is called Daily Disciplines, which are how do you establish this? So here is the example for me that you asked. So actually, this is a real piece. It's in my book, but this is kind of funny. In 2011, my goal was actually to watch more television. That was my yearly goal. That's where I was at that moment.
Okay, come again. In 2011, your goal was to watch more TV.
Yeah, my goal.
No matter the show, just watch TV.
Watch it. I put on Facebook on New Year's Day, and I take a screenshot of it. And my goal was to watch more television. I mean, are you kidding me? But that's what it was. So that's where I was at. And then let me tell you about how I got to where I am today. So I realized that TV was just mindless, a waste of time for me. But
pretty picture, but waste of time.
Yes, exactly. But the thing was is that growing up, we always sat in front of the TV. After work, I sat in front of the TV. Saturday mornings, I sit in front of the TV. It's my way to relax, but it wasn't a good habit of mine, right? It's built into me, but it wasn't a good habit. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to now change that habit and build a life where TV is not driving me. And so I decided that I was going to pick up a book instead. And so I go to the library, I pick up my first book, and I have it on the nightstand next to me, and I'm watching TV. And at that time, we had commercials. It was live TV. It was commercials. And I was like, okay, what I'm going to do then is actually pick up the book at commercial and start to read it. Well, the first commercial comes, and I just can't seem to pause the TV to read the book. And so there's a whole journey here. But long story short to all that, I started to mute the TV at commercial break and started to read for just 2 minutes. Maybe a minute and a half. And slowly I started to enjoy the book more than I enjoyed TV. And that rhythm and that momentum started to build upon itself. And I started to become disciplined in my reading. And then I created a rule for myself that I won't watch TV on Monday nights. That's my night to read. Every other night's game, right? And so all this this little tiny habit of picking up this book at a commercial break on TV led me now to where I hardly watch any TV. Only on weekends. During the weekdays, my wife and I only we have the TV off. We're reading. We're enjoying each other. Whatever the case may be for our family. And so that is an example I have. Right, started with love TV and just pick up the book for a minute and a half. Turned it into now I love to read. That's how I actually relax. And not only that's a good habit to relax. I learn a lot from it. But it all started with that little tiny step.
That's interesting because the other day I called my internet company because I'm negotiating prices again. My contract is up and they're trying to sell me cable. I was like, I don't watch TV. And they're like, what do you mean you don't watch TV? I said, I don't watch it. I said, I read. And I was explaining, and maybe you were the same way. I was explaining to the lady that I was on the phone. I was like, I'm a visual learner. I said, when I read a book, I paint my own picture. I'm the own director of my own show. And she made fun of me. And then I got to the discussion with her, and I guess not everybody thinks like that when you read a book. Are you the same? Or am
I'm the
I
same
weird?
as you. No,
Okay.
I'm the same as you on this one.
She said there are people that like they just read and then process it, but I'm like, no, I paint the picture. Like to me, like it's a whole show going on. And if I pause it, I have to go back, a little bit further. I have to go back like a couple of scenes before to kind of recap what's going on. Does it make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Now I have a question though, because as a father, you had this goal, which I think it's funny goal to watch a lot more TV, and that we are where we are. But as a father, how do you help your child? Because we have a lot of listeners that are also parents. How do you help your child build those right habits? Because something that's going on with today's technology, with with all the gaming world and everything, like they spend a lot of time with gamings. Towards me, when my generation in Albania, at least, we would play out a lot, and like we would barely play games. I played Super Mario, and it was like super day for me. So you as a father, how do you help your child, or what do you recommend somebody to do to build right habits at a young generation too?
That's a great question. I actually would love to know the answer to that. I am a father of only a few months, so I don't have the
Oh,
credibility to answer that
well,
yet.
congratulations, we didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't have the credibility to answer how to be a parent yet. I'm still figuring that out and reading books about it and talking to people, right? Like taking my own advice here. But I know how people change. And so I'm
Yeah.
imagining kids change the same way, but I won't speak on kids, but I will speak on maybe how people change. And so hedonic theory
Mm-hmm.
is a theory of our brain where people avoid pain and seek pleasure, right? That's how it works. But I don't like the avoidant pain. That is like a task-oriented, accountability, like those type of words. I like more the pleasure seeking, which is momentum building, which is positive habits. And so if somebody had a bad habit and they wanted to change, it's really about like when that trigger happens, changing the actual performance, changing the behavior in that moment to then get a dopamine kick from a solid behavior. And so that's how habits are created, right? Like so that's I don't know how to do it with a kid because that's a whole different ball game. A 3-year-old's a whole different game than a 30-year-old. But for 30-year-olds, that's what I would coach people to do.
So let's say I'm your client, right? And I have this really bad habit of, name a bad habit for me here.
Snacking late at night.
Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Actually, I am bad at that. So yeah, let's stick with a real case scenario. Snacking late at night. What did you recommend somebody? And I want to talk about the process here, the step by step, not cold turkey, because sometimes we have withdrawals. Okay, step by step. What did you recommend to change such a habit that it might be a lot of people out there? Like the process of it.
Yeah, so it goes back to my intentional growth formula, which is knowledge plus discipline, which is intentional actions, is what leads to growth. And so the first part of knowledge is also awareness, self-awareness. So a piece of that is like understanding not only what is the bad habit, but what is driving it. So you eat late at night because you're bored? Are you eating at night because you're nervous? Are you eating at night because it's emotional eating? Is it because you didn't get enough protein during the day, right? So there's a good piece of awareness of like, okay, let me understand why, which is the knowledge side. And then now what actions are we going to put in place? So options of that could be like when you get that urge, maybe chew gum because chew gum has no calories and it keeps your mouth moving. Maybe get up and drink a glass of water. Or maybe if you are going to snack, like replace it with almonds or cashews or something positive, and then eat it really slowly because the more you chew, the more your mind thinks you're actually full. And you drag that out. So one thing that I do is I love pretzels and I love snacking on popcorn. Anything salty, I love. And I
All
find
day.
all day, love it. Like that's my thing, not candy, it's salty pretzels. And so what I do then is instead of eat the salty pretzels, which have a lot of carbs and not great for me, I'll replace it with the cheese stick. And the reason why is because I can pull off little tiny pieces of the cheese, and it gives my hands and my mouth something to do over a long period of time that decreases my calorie intake, but also puts me in the momentum building of changing that habit. So that's maybe an example for the audience or for you on this.
No, I love it because you did mention, for example, it's a mindset game. Like you still feel like you're doing what you used to do, but I wouldn't say manipulate your mind. I would say recalibrate your mind. So it's still like, with a cheese stick, that's a great example because you're still working on it. You're still busy. It's less, and then it just starts slowly till like one day you just won't end up like, because you'd be like, this doesn't even taste good. I'm okay. So
Yeah, and that's how habits are
of it.
formed. Yeah, like that's because our brain has neuroplasticity. It's neuroplastic. It'll change. It'll modify. You can train this.
So I also had another question. So let's talk a little bit about your book. First off, I love the cover of your book. And I really had a question towards why did you decide to go with that cover? Because I feel like it's very simple but classic. Is there like a process of why, or was that the reason why?
I'm a big believer in you hire the best people and you give them room to run. And it was my designer. She did an incredible job. I gave her kind of what I like to lead. I like to people give like the framework of a house, but let them do all the finishes. And so she did that. I mean, that I can't take any credit for it. I'm not creative, and she did the work. She did an amazing job. I love the simplicity of it.
I love the simplicity of it too, because it's one of those like classics, and then it's a very nice cover. And for you guys, I'll attach the information on the show notes. So if you're being lazy, it's just a click away. I get it. You're probably driving or working out and listening to us. But also, if you want to see our pretty faces, guys, don't forget you can find it on the YouTube channel and on the website. Ryan, I had a question while I was talking about the book that it just flew my mind because my brain is going 100 miles per hour here. So I'm curious though. You played sports growing up. So who was Ryan at like 17 years old? Like how different are you from who you are right now? Is the fundamentals of it the same, just carved differently? Like who were you at 17 compared to now as an individual?
Ooh, I love your questions, Romina.
I try to put thoughts into it.
Yes, I am definitely probably way more immature than you were when you came to America. I was born and raised here, so it's a little easier.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to say 17, but yeah, that's true. I just thought of it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm ultra competitive and driven and ambitious. That's just who I am. But that wasn't harnessed quite yet. And so what that means, like competitive, poor sport, or driven in business where he's out of control, or is just about Ryan. I was pretty self-centered, pretty focused on just what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go.
So me and you would definitely not get along.
No, probably not. No, like it was the Ryan show, and it was that, and it really was that until my business failed. And in that moment it was really good that I had that big old piece of humble pie that I ate, because I needed to understand like that I needed to change and evolve and grow. I was 27, so I had no excuse to being a child anymore, a young adult. Like I'm an adult now, I'm 27 years old. Like, what do I actually want? Who do I want to be? Those are the questions I had to ask myself in that moment. And so that's what evolved me in the last 8 years to who I am today. But it's associating around the right people, reading the books, learning how people grow and how yourself grows, establishing good daily disciplines. Those are what got me to where I am. And so I hope that answers your question. It was the Ryan show when I was 17.
No, it does, because I would say you're so different, because you ended up being from the Ryan show to the Ryan now that wants to, empower others and help others strive on their business, on their personal life or relationships. So it's not about Ryan, it's about other people now and what Ryan can help for them. So just to overjump that's not an easy thing to do, to turn from a self-centered person to let me help you, let me teach you from my lessons. I wouldn't want to call mistakes, but let me teach you from my lessons.
Yeah, and a little bit of that is the mindset of just understanding that, like, there's plenty of pie out there. Like, we can win together. And it's
Yeah.
not like me versus you, right? Like if you have a lot of audience and that means I don't. No, like we can help each other. And the best way to help people is like to literally help them, like help serve people and help them dream and achieve. And that not only is that fulfilling to me, but the more you help people, the more people are going to want to help you. That's just the way the world works.
There, forgot what book it's from, but it said, I think it's Napoleon Hill who said that. Don't quote me, guys. If I'm wrong, then you can, yell at me. It's okay. It said you will achieve what you want in life once you help enough people achieve what they need to be in life.
Yeah.
Is that Napoleon Hill?
It could be Napoleon Hill, or it probably is. It's one of the classics.
It's either him or Dale Carnegie. One of them.
It's one of those two.
One of those two. And their books, you guys, like, I love it. I would say my favorite book is How to Make Friends and Influence People, Carnegie. How to Think and Grow Rich. That's a great one. The Power of Habits. There's so many. And also, have you read Conscious Capitalism by Mackey?
Not yet.
Ooh, that's
I heard good things about it, though. Yeah.
It's a good read. What's your favorite? So I can get new suggestions here, too.
I have a lot of favorites of books. I'm a big reader. I have favorite authors.
Okay.
And so I like to read them. So Dale Carnegie is a favorite author. Napoleon Hill. Jim Rohn is like one of my favorites. Excuse me. John Wooden is another great one. He takes the sports angle a little bit too. So I have these favorite authors that I love to follow.
Wasn't he a coach, John Wooden?
Yeah. So
I actually did an episode for the UCLA. I did an episode because oh my goodness, yes.
Tell me about it.
I ran into research from John Wooden. Right away, I was like, hold up. And I found this very interesting. He talks about this so he wanted to win, of course, like the championships. But the first day of every new season, he would teach his guys how to tie their shoes and put their socks correctly. Have you heard this? Mm. And like at first I'd be like, well, what are you doing? Like, we're here to win a championship. Like, let's go to practice. And then they start talking about like the basics, how important is the basics, instead of, just thinking about the championship. You need to get down to the nitty gritty, to the detail, because if you don't if you don't tie your shoes correctly, they might untie and you might fall. Or, might have a blister and then you cannot run. Like, to that fundamentals, which I find that story with John Wooden, like, amazing to me.
Yeah. He's one of my favorites because he won. So he's the winningest coach, or one of the top winningest coach in all college basketball history for the UCLA Bruins.
They called him the Wizard of something. I don't remember the nickname.
Yeah. But the thing was that he won 10 national championships in 12 years, but never actually talked about winning the game. It never came out of his mouth. He was all about performing the best of your ability on each and every single day. So whether you won or lost, that was only the outcome. That was the scoreboard. What you can control, and his definition of success was the ability to do your best to the ability that you've been given every single day. And I just love that, and I resonated with it. It's like winning the day. What can we do to win every single day? And if we do that, it'll compound and the scoreboard will take care of itself. And so that's why he's one of my favorite authors.
Nice. And I love it, winning the day, because just day in and day out, try your best. When you go to sleep, you feel like I had a good day, like I had an accomplished day. Or if you feel like you might have done something better, don't be too harsh on yourself. Just do it tomorrow. I don't mean slack here, don't slack. But if you feel like you're missing something, just make sure that you still do it, because society, social media, all these people put so much noise, so much distraction that we feel like we're slacking, but we're actually, if you compare it to where you were like a week ago, 5 months ago, or a year ago, like it's a big drastic, but those little steps are super duper important.
They really are. And it's like there's some psychology that we probably don't have time for, but in my book, each week we do, wins, losses, and learnings. And so it helps you pause and think about what were the wins, what were the things I needed to correct, and what did I learn? And then you take the bridge of change. What will I do differently? And that's it. Just little tweaks.
On it, yeah.
Yeah, just little tweaks. And each day, if you could do it every night, that's awesome. You and I were talking about how we watch our film of ourselves for slight tweak and improvement. And that's all it's about. It's just about improving every single day a little bit. to whatever you want to go and whatever you want to do, not what society tells you.
Yeah.
So that way you're high potential. You're at the peak of where you want to be in your life.
And honestly, I mean, I would love to hear more about your book, but I actually don't want to spoil it. So like I said earlier, you lazy guys, like just tap on the show notes. We'll direct you to the link right away. But I'm sure you don't have just the book and your businesses aside. Are you working on a new and exciting project that you would love to share with us? Like I love listening new ideas because I love the whole thought to turn into a project. Anything exciting you're working on that you want to share with us?
I'm coming up. I just created what I call the Intentional Day program. It is a month program, a 4-week course around my book. What I found is that people, they want me to help, and I love to do it. And people need some guidance as they start to establish these first goals and daily disciplines and dreaming. And so I put together a 4-week course that walks them through the 4 elements of growth, the dreaming, the goal setting, and then also like the win-loss learning, like how to tweak it there. And so that way, once they learn all this stuff, they can excel on their own without needing me, which is the whole goal.
That's really awesome, actually, because especially for like accountability or actually needing guidance, because whenever you read a book, like you might get, just a portion of the book through you, but if you go through slowly through a program, I like that idea. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, thank you. It became because people are asking for it, right? That's how entrepreneurs create stuff. People ask for it, and you're like, I think I can. Yeah, I think I can package this up and do something around. So that's the new project I'm working on. I'm tweaking it now and still running some ads on it. So
nice, awesome. Well, I would love to know when that is launched. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for you for a new project. Now we are coming to the end of the show, and you guys, number one, should definitely connect with Ryan, which we'll go ahead and get to the details. But before we tell people, Ryan, where they can connect with you, I'm always curious about the answer of the last question. What is your personal definition of success?
So for me, it is authentically walking out like the purpose I have for my life. And so what that is to help people, to encourage people, to awake people, to shake people up a little bit to the life they want to live. And so for me to authentically do that. And the reason why I say that is because there's so many different digital marketing things and all these things that you can get in your mind. But the reality is I need to be authentic to who I am to be able to walk out the purpose I have for myself. And that is how I define success.
I love it. And I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay, sure.
So do you have I'm sure you have friends or, friendship or circle of relationships that knew you when you were 17 when it was Ryan's show and know Ryan now? What are some of the most awesome comments that you would get that people sometimes would be like, whoa, I didn't realize I've changed this much?
I'm sorry, can you, I cut out or I froze. Can you say that question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I have a question. How, the circle of friends that you had, let's say in high school or when you were younger to, some of those relationships might have continued to now. What are some of the comments that you get towards you being all about Ryan's show before and now being all about wanting to help others? What are some funny comments that you would get from people for that? Or some, when friends, just mess with you a little bit. I'm always curious because I always get those type of comments sometimes, and I'm just surprised every time. Is there a funny one that you like to share?
Oh gosh, I really don't have one. To me, actually, it's been a little challenging. What I don't think people tell you is when you start to grow and your old relationships don't and aren't growing, there's the separation. And so I have some of my friends who I grew up with who are still growing with me, and that's just been really fun. But I have other ones who've plateaued. They've reached what they wanted to do in life, and they plateaued, and I'm just beginning. And so that separation is building a kind of a gap between us. So for me, I kind of have probably a different experience than you do around it.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, you want to tell us where our beautiful audience can connect with you, the platforms that you're available on?
Yeah, the best 2 spots is one on my website, theintentionalday.com. And you can find out more information about me and the book there. And then also on Instagram is where I post a lot of this stuff and a lot of my thoughts. And that's at Ryan.performancecoach.
Awesome. And then I'll attach all the information, of course, for you guys too, and LinkedIn. If you if you don't have a LinkedIn account yet, please open one. Dress me bananas. When people don't have one, you're missing a lot of opportunities, you guys. Go from Facebook to LinkedIn. No, they're not paying me. I just think it's much better. Awesome. Well, Ryan, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Any last thing you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, no, that's it. I guess the only last thing I would share is like whatever you want to do, just take the step tomorrow or right now to go for it. You have nothing to lose. Failure is just an illusion. Just go for it. You got this.
Failure is just an illusion. I like that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And for you, my listeners out there, make sure to tune in every Tuesday. And if you're listening to this through a podcast platform, wherever you get your podcast juice from, go ahead and hop in on the YouTube channel as well as on connectwithromina.com to actually see the video interview so you guys can see our pretty faces as well. And with that being said, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Romina.